Looks like we're about to enter into the next sector.
That is correct. 1941 Max Fleischer Superman Cartoon series. Warning, this sector requires help to navigate through.
Let's fire up the impossibility drive and get us the help that we need for today. Okay, what is happening here?
Where are we?
Glix, give us a situation report.
Currently, we are on the planet Geekery. Be warned, our impossibility drive may cause distortions as we traverse this land. Impending impossibility engaging in 3,
Oh, gosh.
2,
Oh, dear.
1.
Comms are now open to devoted geeks.
Awesome. Well, while Glix finishes up the impossibility drive, let's say hi to everybody.
Hello, devoted geeks, and welcome to episode 55 of Comm Talk, the podcast extension of Geek Devotions, the YouTube show from devoted geeks who are devoted to letting people know that they are loved. I'm Celeste, and with me is
Dallas. As you listen to this podcast, please interact with us. Send us your thoughts on what we are saying via Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you can also check us out on Twitch. You can find us simply by looking up Geek Devotions on all those platforms. Also, don't forget our website, geekdevotions.com, where we post up articles and all of our devotions, all those things on a regular basis. And finally, do us a favor and leave comments and a review on Apple Podcasts. It helps people to find our podcast. They may read it and they go, wow, this is really awesome. I need to check it out. And then they subscribe to our podcast. That being said, we are in a very interesting, impossible situations, aren't we, Celeste?
yes, we are.
We are on the planet Geekery, and our impossibility drive, kind of the quick travel feature burnt out.
It's on the fritz.
It's on the fritz on our way back from Retro Rewind podcast. They're currently on the hunt for Captain Francisco, and he's lost in time stream somehow mystically. So that being said, we're having to travel through the Superman district of Planet Geekery.
Yes.
Okay, and
Yes.
sweet. And we are currently in a new sector.
Our impossibility drive appears to be pulling in Francisco and Paul of the Retro Rewind podcast. Warning, the time displacement field around Francisco seems to be out of sync. We may have to recalibrate after his entry.
Whoa! That was gnarly.
Whoa. Oh, man. Oh, hey, Paul.
Hey.
So I can't believe we read Superman 3. A classic? But, that's...
What do you
that's
mean?
weird.
It's awesome. You gotta check that.
Yeah, but I mean, we just watched it and I don't know. It's not that great.
What
Hey,
do you
guys.
mean? Hey,
Welcome to the planet Geekery.
Wait, who are you people?
What's going on?
Where? Who is this?
We
I think
are
you went too far back to pick up
Too far
Francisco.
back.
Too far.
Wait, what year is this? This is 2012, right?
It's nice.
And Glix, push that one back and bring us a different one.
Recalibrating time sync for Francisco. Recalibrating time sync for Francisco.
Oh, hey, Dallas and Celeste.
Hey, what's going on?
Welcome to
I
the
just
planet
had-
Geekery.
Oh, okay. That's where this is. Okay. I
You
feel
remember being here once before, right?
I feel like I was being a bit too meta before, so sorry about that.
It's all good. It's all
Something
good.
like that.
Just don't eat the tacos. The taco machine's on the fritz.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
little weird. All right, so since you guys are here and we have open comms, can you guys introduce yourselves to the devoted geeks who are listening right now?
Hey, devoted geeks, I'm going to let the captain.
Hey, Devoted Geeks. I'm the captain.
There you go.
My name is Francisco Ruiz. I'm captain of the Retro Rewind podcast, aka just the showrunner and producer of it. And
is that all?
that's all I do. But me and my friend Paul here, we take a look at movies and video games that are 15 years or older and discuss what's still good about them, what's bad about them, and if they still hold up today. And yeah, that's what the Retro Rewind podcast is. And that's who I am in the context of Devoted Geek Life.
Very cool. And you, strange visitor from another planet wearing blue stripes?
Yes, my name is Paul J. Powers. You can find me at pauljpowers.com, where I can interrupt not only the Francisco, the captain on the Retro Rewind podcast, but now I have a chance to interrupt Dallas and Celeste
All
on
right,
their
so
own.
Brooks is going to move on with us.
Oh, righty then.
Turn it around on him.
How's it
All right,
feel,
Glick.
Paul?
Feels like things are just warming up.
It's going to be a fun podcast, guys. I'm super excited about today. All right, Glix, what do you have in store for us today?
We are about to continue on to Sector 2 of the Superman District. This is the 1941 Max Fleischer Superman cartoon series. To navigate through here, we will need to discuss our likes and dislikes of this series, our opinions of Superman and Lois Lane, and our thoughts on the execution of this series.
Awesome. Let's do this.
I would like to reiterate that this portion of our journey through the Planet Geek area would not be possible without the help of our devoted Patreon geeks.
Yes, absolutely. We do want to give a special thank you to all of our devoted Patreon geeks, one of which happens to be the dear Captain Francisco standing here with us. And because without them, literally, we'd not be able to do this show. We discovered, and we'll get into this a little bit, that I've actually seen quite a bit of this particular Superman.
Yeah.
And I actually own quite a bit of it at one point in time.
Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of weird watching it, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But devoted Patreon geeks, thank you guys so much for supporting what we do here and for believing in the ministry of Geek Devotions. You guys are pretty stinking amazing.
Well, thank you guys for ministering to us geeks.
Yeah,
it's amazing that you do that.
So, all right. Well, let's get into this party, guys. Normally, what we had planned to do was to talk about the storylines of each Superman series. However, as we discovered, this one has no continual storyline.
It's very episodic.
It is. So we're going to talk about instead about what we liked about the series and some of the stuff we didn't like necessarily even. And so let's start on a high note. Let's talk about the things we did enjoy. So, because he's biting at the chop to start off, let's let the Master Interrupter tell us.
All right, thank you so much. I really like the artwork in this. There's so much to talk about in this.
Why are you stealing the thing I like, Paul? I like the artwork as well.
All right, because the artwork is great. I think everyone could agree that the artwork is great.
Except, I mean, it starts off really well, but.
Oh, yeah.
You mean like the first few episodes? Like, I think it's
oh
like
my gosh, the first few episodes are immaculate. I was blown away by how good they looked. I'm like, this is a 40s cartoon? Oh my gosh.
They did rotoscoping. They were some of the first people to do rotoscoping ever.
Yeah. They invented it.
And they knocked it out. So like there are portions where Superman's animated and there's actually a dude standing there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, this is some of the most realistic struggles, even for live action Superman on the TV and on the big movie screen. Some of Superman's struggles as he's trying to fight whatever's attacking him, you can feel the tension there. And, it is amazing to watch.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's absolutely one of my favorite things is the animation to it. Francisco, what else were you thinking, man, besides just the animation?
Well, that theme's pretty catchy.
That is.
That soundtrack.
It's my second favorite Superman song.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I'm sure John Williams is the top, right?
You know it, yeah.
You mean Hans Zimmer isn't the tippy chap? Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. But yeah, that theme was really, I enjoyed it. It really set the tone for the cartoons or the. Would it be accurate to call this a cartoon series? I guess so.
Sure.
Yeah. Animated shorts. This cartoon series, and I liked how they. It's not like it was one theme and then that was just the beginning, and then they never really touched it again, except for the beginning. But they used it throughout, and they actually did modifications on it. It was really cool how they weaved it in throughout each episode.
Yeah,
I really like that.
Yeah, very cool. So that's what were you thinking? What were some stuff you liked about it?
I just enjoyed I enjoyed the art. I enjoyed the music. I enjoyed the storylines for the most part.
Mhm.
I mean, they were really well done. They got a lot accomplished in the short time of the shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like they're not long shows.
No, I think like 7 or 8 minutes around that time.
Somewhere up to 10 minutes. But yeah, I was right there with you, Celeste. I was really surprised how much, like just how quick they got to the action, like the minimal setup they had, and you were still able to invest in what was happening.
Especially in the earlier episodes.
Oh, yes. Most of this good stuff is revolving around those early episodes.
Yeah, and what's amazing about those episodes, there was hardly any dialogue in there as well.
And that's what I was about to say. My favorite part was how little dialogue there was.
Right.
They managed to accomplish these stories that you knew what was going on. You knew it was happening. It was mostly just through the music.
Right.
With very minimal wording.
See, I wonder if some of that is a layover from the silent film days where they didn't have conversation. You had panels, like the beginning of each episode, you had the newspapers. It gave you the storyline that you needed, and then they went into it. And so it was very much that very minimalistic, but telling a great story at the same time.
Yeah, I think we can, a lot of, I was about to say a lot of TV shows, but even a lot of movies can learn from that today.
Absolutely.
Though I gotta say, if you just had a huge robbery of tons of cash, why would you have headline it, oh, the House of Jewels, over $500,000 worth of jewels in this house? Nothing could go wrong there.
Why are you advertising that you're moving all this cash?
Right.
Oh, on the
one where they were
the bullet train
on the train. Yeah.
Why would you not only advertise like what's going on, what you're doing, but which train it is?
Right.
Yeah.
That was
to stay clear, obviously. I mean, no one's going to
security 101, people.
Oh my god.
Well, one thing that I liked, and I don't know how telling this is of me, but the security guards all had Tommy guns and machine guns, which was pretty cool.
Yes, it was.
The best part of that Bull Train episode was when Lois picks up the Tommy gun.
Yes.
I was like, get that, girl.
I was very impressed by
Lois,
that.
I know and love.
Yeah, and that era of time, the whole Art Deco style of the buildings and even the cars. I mean, some of those car wrecks are better than any animated anything I've ever seen that's animated. And like some of the special effects, like with the lava falling and the fires and the buildings and the electricity, and some of that is just so, it beats today's standards by far.
Now,
the animation effects is really well done.
Gorgeous. Now,
Flash animation can suck.
This series, the animation style was heavily influential on the animated Batman series from the 90s.
I was going to say, they seem so similar. I felt like I was watching like a version of Batman the animated series. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, so some of the art stuff that's going on there, part of the reason why it was such a high quality, I did some digging into it. So the Fleischer, what we call it?
Fleischer,
the Fleischer brothers, they didn't want to do this.
No, they didn't.
The Paramount was like, hey, do this. And they're like, no, this is stupid. We're not doing this.
In fact, if you dig deep enough, it's kind of sad, but go ahead.
So they highballed them. They're like, all right, we will do this for the cost of $100,000 per episode.
The average cartoon at that time was about $25,000.
Oh,
so the
wow.
Popeye cartoons they were doing was about 25. They're like, we don't want to do it. So let's just say, let's do it for 100.
These people did Popeye?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they would rather do Popeye than Superman.
Well, they had moved on. Well, anyway, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
They were actually doing movies at the time. They had just done the animated film of Gulliver's Travels, and they started working on another animation film, and they felt they were too busy to do this on top of that. So they're like, we'll do it for like $1 million.
Well, literally, like that, the equivalent today's money would be them asking for $1,700,000 per episode.
What is this? Guest friends?
So I mean, I dug into it. It ended up being $50,000 per episode that went into it. But I'm telling you,
actually, it was for the first episode.
Was this the first episode?
Yeah. Then the remaining episodes that the Fleischers did was about 30,000, and then it was just about 25,000 after for the remaining.
Yeah, that shows.
Oh,
It does though. It really. And that's
Yeah.
what I was like, I love the beauty of the first half of the whole series
yeah.
because you could tell they had the money and they put the work into it with
Yeah.
everything, storytelling and all that.
And it shows. And I'm glad we can appreciate it. Almost, we're coming up to 100 years later almost.
Yeah.
Yes,
You know,
which
and-
blows my mind.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, you're right.
Welcome to time travel, folks. But yeah, I'm so glad they did put that effort into it and that we can enjoy it now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I think that's just I'm trying to think of just an emblematic example of how something that even if things aren't received well in the time, if they're made with excellence and quality that they're going to hold up. I mean, good art is good art. I mean, the Sistine Chapel is still amazing. I've never seen it, but I hear it's amazing.
Yeah. So are the other 15.
I didn't say 16, did I?
No. It's a joke.
Oh my gosh. So, but yeah, so I mean, there's obviously a lot of care that went into the series. So I think for me, that's like one of my favorite things is you could see the care that went into it, even though it was like, we don't want to do this. Oh crap, we have money. Well, we better do this right.
We have money. Let's spend it.
Yes,
And that's where it gets sad is because they were trying to do this on top of the other movie. It was so much pressure that the brothers split up and dissolved basically over this show.
like they stopped being brothers.
Yeah, they were based in Florida, and no, they didn't stop being brothers, but but one moved to California, so while the other stayed.
Yeah, like the company that they had done that had created basically dissolved, and then Paramount had basically helped create Famous Productions, which is the Famous Productions or studios is what did the last half of the series, where we had talked about earlier, you had this weird tonal shift in the series. The brothers on the front end, it was all very sci-fi oriented, and all this other stuff. On the backside, you had this weird political
America
right now. To be fair, this is like right before Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I went back and looked
And after, yeah.
So, well, I mean, Pearl Harbor was like in December of 42. All of these came out right before 42, before that happened.
Oh, I saw some years as like 40 up to 44, but maybe I miss.
I don't know, from what I saw online, that now I could be wrong. If somebody's watching this or listening to this, rather, or Paul's gonna go ahead and do the. He's looking at
investigating.
He's on it. This is why we need a silent producer like LJ.
Yes.
Fact checks us. We need a man in a chair. That's it.
That's a different universe.
So, but still, at the same time, you did have World War II taking place.
Yeah.
And so you had like, And
all right, the back 8 were produced in 42 and 43.
Oh.
So that includes the
last couple episodes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, here's my ding. This is part of the reason why I love this series so much.
Okay.
And I even love the last half, even though it got really weird.
Yeah.
I have a love for political cartoons and the way that comic books and cartoons and media have been influenced by or influence the war effort.
Yeah.
Like it's really fascinating to me how it reflects culture and stuff like that. All the way back to like I was telling Celeste earlier, there was a storyline, there was a political cartoonist named Thomas Nash who literally changed a generation through his political cartoons.
Did he create the first warp drive?
The first warp drive?
No, that was the guy who raised that pig, right?
Yeah, okay. I thought it was Nash for some reason.
That'll do, pig.
So, but I have a love for this type of thing. So it's really interesting to me to see how these guys they put their reality into this, and really it was propaganda. I'm not gonna lie, it was straight up propaganda.
Yep.
America, and I mean between the 11th hour episode, which I know Francisco loves that episode.
Bong, bong. Sorry, Japanese people, you're not worth saving. You're all
hey, is it 11 o'clock?
Okay, so since we're kind of verging into this, let's talk about some of the stuff that we didn't particularly care about within this series of cartoons. And I think we collectively can agree the last portion of it, the last like 7 episodes.
Yeah, was it a full 7?
Just yeah.
I for me it started with Volcano number 8 and
Right.
to the last one. I don't know, it just wasn't as crisp. Now the Fleischer Studios did do Volcano number 8 and number 9. But then after that, starting with number 10 through 17, the quality of the animation, it just wasn't on par with the rest, and the quality of the stories.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. It's probably on par with my poor memory or references because Zephram Cochrane invented warp drive. I don't know why I was thinking Nash anything, but
Yeah. I think you're thinking of Pluto Nash.
maybe.
That's why your mind went to space. Anyway, we're not talking about that.
No.
Yeah.
What's there?
Probably. Yeah, most likely.
Seems fair.
Yeah, for me, I think Volcano, I could remember feeling like, I'm kind of like sleepy now.
Yeah.
It was cool. I thought the effects of Volcano were pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
Right.
But I feel like that's where story almost took a back seat to action. I mean, the stories were very like quick, and I mean, there wasn't a lot to them. They weren't super fleshed out, but they were interesting.
Right.
Like my favorite episode was the metallic monster. I think that's the one with
The mechanical monsters.
Mechanical monsters, yeah, where the scientist is controlling all these robots and they're flying and turning into airplanes. I just thought that was such an interesting concept.
It was.
He has this battalion of robots and they look like planes. I love that introduction of the shadow. You think it's this weird plane, but it's this robot. I don't know. There's just something about these stories in the beginning where I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I don't really recall seeing stuff like that a lot. Or if I have, this is a cool take on it.
Right.
But as it progressed, like with the carnival, or not carnival, but the fair and the
circus,
beast, circus, and the quote unquote savages in Africa controlled by Nazis somehow. I didn't really get that.
With the guest appearance of Hitler himself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Hitler, being very upset with his radio. It just felt like it became much more politically driven, which is fine. There's a place for that, I suppose. But
I'm with Dallas. I love those the place for those wartime cartoons. I think it's, and they're banned for being, a lot of them are banned for being too propaganda, but I love the fact that they haven't banned these.
Right.
Oh yeah, I'm glad. I'm not on board with banning any type of art. I think that I'm very free speech. I think it should be out there for us and anyone else to commentate on. I think that's important for us to do. And if we couldn't watch these, then we wouldn't be able to say, hey, that's really weird that Superman was killing a bunch of Japanese people just because.
Right.
What? Because I totally disagree. I think
let's get into it. Excellent.
All right. I'm not saying they had it coming, but I am saying that no, from an American perspective, this seems on par. If the Japanese created a cartoon, they had their superhero, coming over to America, sabotaging our planes and boats and things, I would think that's, of course, that's what you do. That's what, you got to inspire people. And he wasn't attacking civilians. He was attacking.
He destroyed. I feel like he destroyed a temple. That didn't seem to be militaristic at all. I could be maybe
it was supporting. Where do you think the funding for the military comes from?
Okay, well then by that account, civilians are war.
Well, that's the thing, though. Is it makes sense in a propaganda point of view of going, this makes sense. We need to villainize the enemy. Let's make our hero, attack the enemy and not necessarily care too much about them. That makes sense in a propaganda mindset, but I don't think it fits in a Superman mindset.
Exactly. That's the issue I am having. Yeah, I get it. If it were like the Punisher, by all means, it totally makes sense for Punisher to go just mow down everyone. But
I just thought, if I had the powers, I'd fly around and, in the middle of the night, I'm not doing anything. I'll just go attack enemy countries.
Well, but here's my thing.
Glad you're not Superman.
This one actually changed up some of his backstory
Yeah.
to where he was not raised by Martha.
Yeah.
And
Yes, I
Yeah.
noticed that.
Orphanage.
And so
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's how they were justifying the change.
Maybe.
Because he never says in the stuff that, he's going to be a good boy and not kill people. Like, he doesn't say that. He just
Right.
doesn't
That's true.
do it.
And-
So I'm curious as to if they were taking some artistic license.
It's in Elseworlds.
And if you look at the crest on his S crest, it's
Right.
filled with black, not
It
yellow.
is.
So it's he's dark-hearted. This is Superman 3's alter ego.
I was actually surprised by that because the only time I've ever seen that was in the Kingdom Come series that Alex Ross did back in the early 2000s, late 90s. I can't remember exactly what it was, but that was a Superman that was like, I'm done. It's like, if he came out, he's like, this is, I'm laying down the law. This was going to happen.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is a different Superman altogether. We're going to get into that conversation here just a little bit.
Okay.
But as far as the series, I think overall there's a lot of high points in it.
Mhm.
And it definitely had an influence in people's lives to a degree. The scene that you talked about the robots, how much you thought that was interesting,
Mm-hmm.
that was highly influential on Miyazaki
Nice.
from Studio Ghibli.
That's awesome.
He straight checked part of that for Lupin the Third, which is one of his biggest films. And also the robot designs were jacked for Castle in the Sky, which is a great movie. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I haven't seen that one.
You need to see that. That's one of my favorite Miyazaki's.
Very cool.
I haven't seen that one either.
You need to see that one
We
too.
need to go
Well,
through
let's
the
stop
timeline.
this and just go watch Castle.
Let's go. Come on. Once we get through the Superman district.
Speaking of anime, are we still on things that we don't like?
I was going to
Sure.
say, are we still on things we don't like? Because I have something character design wise that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, are you going to talk about Lois Lane's eyes?
I am going to talk about
Okay. Go for it.
Miss Forehead No Nose. What is up with her character design? Oh my gosh. So she looks so alien. She looked more alien than Superman, who is
She
an
did.
alien.
She did.
Oh my gosh. It was so strange. I mean, you only saw her nose when she has full profile. Otherwise, no
Yeah.
nose. I mean, she has like Michael Jackson nose, like no nose, just the nostrils. It was very strange.
Wow.
I
YouTube is not going to flag this conversation.
I actually like her design overall, except the no nose didn't.
Her
bother
character's great. Her character's well. Just her.
No, I'm just talking about her design. Her forehead actually changed in size depending on the episode that you watched.
Oh, okay.
But I did feel her eyes were a little too big, and it reminded me of anime. But then the whole thing about anime. Do you know why anime's eyes are usually big?
To make it more childish.
Make it
Childlike?
look more American.
Yeah.
That's not how we animate eyes.
Well, have you seen these episodes?
I don't know what you're talking about, Paul.
They got put up one
Yeah,
of the
they're,
images
they're
of
either
it, like,
squinting or they're like half their face big sometimes.
like I just put up one of the ones where and it's like her eyes are on opposite sides of her head.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like she looks like that fish that looks on both directions.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, that's what beauty was back in those days, you know.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Somehow I doubt this.
Yeah, I doubt it too, but hey,
Right.
beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I don't know.
That's it. I think that one of my, along with some of the character design stuff that was just kind of weird, I didn't like the inconsistency though of how they play this out. Like there were moments where Superman's like, yeah, I can take this, and then the next episode, like at one point he's holding two electrical wires. He's like, yeah, just pass right through me. And then the next scene, show, he's being electrocuted by it, and it hurts.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
I didn't notice that.
Or I think they're in this series, he's not able to actually just fly at will. He jumps really high and stuff. But he changed midair in one episode. He was
Yes.
like,
All right,
midair.
tell him why, Dallas.
Because these guys created Superman's flight.
Yes.
Originally,
But
Superman
But he
didn't
never
fly.
flies. He doesn't.
No,
fly.
he didn't originally. Think about the line. Able to jump over a building in a single bound.
Yes.
That's all he did originally.
Yeah. I
These
understand.
guys went to Action Comics was, hey, this looks dumb. Can we make him fly? And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not?
But he doesn't fly ever, except this one time when he changes directions.
No, he does. Like when the
No, he glides.
No,
he's like
when things are shooting down at him and he's punching those like beams that are coming down, he's like flying up. He's not.
No, but when you see him coming down, he's feet first, like he's landing, like he's jumped.
Yes.
So he's not flying.
No, but
who'd you see fly feet first?
It's a hybrid.
Yeah, I'm flying through there right now.
I think some of it was them going through though and fixing the because that was the part of the thing is they animated it and they're like, this looks really awkward, and so they adjusted the in between panels to go, okay, he's flying, he's not just jumping and landing. There are times where absolutely it was a jump and a land,
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think they were fixing, like there's those panels where you see him actually flying. Those were never meant to happen at all.
Yeah.
Originally.
By the way, that opening little scene where they're saying stronger than a locomotive and can leap tall buildings and I don't know, that's some weird forced perspective because Superman's size doesn't change as he goes over the building.
I never noticed that.
I can never unsee that now.
He can also grow in size in a single bound.
Or that, yeah, maybe that's what it is. He's just growing.
Just like I said in you guys in y'all's podcast about the other Superman, not the weirdest superpower he's ever had.
That's true.
Yeah, good point.
I need to find where he shoots out the mini Superman and send that to you guys.
Yes.
Although I will say things that we didn't like. It did look creepy when he did use his X-ray vision, where his eyes got really.
But we now understand Superman 1 storyline and why in the old one, the one we did.
Yeah, you guys talked about this.
Why he did the eyes, because it was a direct snatch from the cartoon.
Yes. That's one thing I did appreciate about this is the amount of things that they pulled from this to do the rest of the series.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like direct snatching the artwork.
Oh my gosh. All right.
That's great artwork.
It is great. All right. So since we're kind of talking about him, the Man of Steel himself, let's transition this conversation into what were our opinions about this version of Superman and this version of Lois Lane. We know that already that we think Lois Lane looks weird in this, but what were our opinions about the person?
But at least she picked up the Tommy gun.
That was awesome. I agree. That was awesome.
Like
well, all right, I'll go ahead and be the bad guy. It's like she's a little too cutthroat.
You're not a bad guy.
I'm a bad woman? What do you mean?
Awkward.
Wreck-It Ralph line, Paul. Gosh.
Oh. it's okay to be bad. Thanks, Satan. Anyway.
Wow. Retro Rewind Podcast and Comm Talk do not support Satanism.
No.
Not at all.
Anyway, where was I? You totally derailed me with that.
The bad guy.
You want to be the bad guy.
Okay.
You're not a bad guy.
So I thought she kicked everyone, especially Clark Kent, to the curb way too easy. In fact, all hide his press pass and so he could stay away.
Yeah, what was that about? Jeez.
She was a
and then follows him to the museum when he's trying to get the one scoop he can do. And I'm glad he did it. And she got hurt in the process. I'm like,
well, I'm not glad she got hurt, but I'm glad he got the story.
For you, I mean, I get you're a reporter and you're supposed to go where there's danger, and I'm glad there's a consequence for that danger. It's not just like, oh, I'm impervious.
Oh, okay.
Right.
That's interesting.
What about that? It's interesting.
No, that there are consequences, like, hey, you shouldn't snoop around, and like, because a lot of times, even in the modern cartoons of Superman, and I'm thinking, like from the WB and stuff, it's like she's always snooping around. I get it, that's her job, but there's never dire consequences, like, Darkseid kidnapped me, but I'm fine.
Yeah, exactly. She should. I'm glad she had some battle scars there. That's good.
Yeah,
right.
It rounds out her character, much like her face is rounded out with no nose.
Oh dear.
I will say this: out of the three that we've had opportunity to talk about with when we're on y'all's show talking about the 1978 and then the 1950s serials that we saw, this Lois so far is the more active and brave. Lois.
Yeah, I did like that she was active. Yes.
She was not Buttercup picking up the sword and not stabbing the
yes, it was very refreshing to see that. And I'm surprised for for a 40s cartoon that
Right.
they would have the heroine be so
Heroic.
emboldened or just have so much agency in that she's not just gonna wait for Superman. She's gonna pick up the Tommy gun by the Tommy.
Well, she had to get in trouble so Superman could rescue her every episode.
I do appreciate, though, that even though she did take action, she did try to defend herself, she didn't, like, reject Superman's help.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
She was like, I'm going to defend myself until somebody can come help me.
Right.
Yeah. So why would she get into like that one bullet car? Why did she like get into it?
She got into every vehicle, whether she wanted to or not.
Like, look, an open vehicle. Let me jump in. Now, to be fair, if you notice, like she got in there and she smashed the instrumentation on it.
Yeah.
So
but it didn't do anything.
I'm going to stop this myself. Like she's trying to take charge to keep this from happening.
Oh no, she's definitely a woman of action.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but it did get annoying, like her angst against Clark Kent, against everyone else.
Yeah,
like what Paul, like just kicking her over the curb. That got annoying really quick.
And I think it's because there's no growth from it. It never changed. I mean, I realize these are episodic, but it would have been nice as the series went on that they softened. He seemed fairly soft toward her, but that she softened toward him as it went on.
Right.
Like there were just more like moments of like, hey, we're friends now, or something like that. That would have been nice to have seen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did you see the episode where she went to kiss Superman and it turns out she kissed Clark Kent?
Yes.
She's like,
oh, yes.
Thanks yourself.
You get here.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. Yes.
Oh man, that was great. All right. So, any other opinions about Lois as to this particular version of her?
Besides her face, I like the overall 40s look. No, the design of her. I thought was good.
Yeah.
I'd have to agree. Yes.
There's definitely a feel to the design work throughout this entire series.
Yeah.
That I think it's definitely dated, but at the same time very timeless.
Yeah.
Like it fits with the story very well.
It's a period piece.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What about Soups? Let's talk about the Man of Steel himself. What do we think about him and counter the Clark Kent?
I felt like this was one of. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
No, I was interrupting you.
I feel like this is one of those. It seems like often when you come to a version of Superman, there's either the main character is Superman, and then Clark Kent is the secret identity, or he's Clark Kent and Superman is his secret identity. Dude, I don't know if you sort of understand the distinction. Yeah, it's like where the focus is. Who are you investing in more, I guess. And this one, it's like Superman is the one you care about. Clark Kent's just like, the secret identity that's the foil for Lois, and just a way to get Superman to be wherever Lois happens to be, which is odd that I think the last story is the only one where there's no Lois, which was very strange.
Yeah, the secret agent one. Yeah,
the secret agent
which
one.
I actually enjoyed. It was like it was high action and it kept the pace going. I was like, okay, it's kind of returned back to the earlier kinda. So I actually enjoyed it.
I'm sorry, but how does he get tied up? I mean, really,
there's a lot of plot issues throughout almost all the episodes, so I'm not going to even go into that.
Okay, I feel like this Superman is probably the weakest Superman we've ever seen.
Like powers wise, weak.
Power wise, strength wise. I mean, across the board, like he's definitely like the heroic, tough. You look up to him, but the dude takes a hit every episode. It's like it's the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Things are falling on him. He's struggling with them. He can't lift things up. And
sometimes he has trouble with like a hatch of a door.
Yeah,
like, come on, dude.
And that's one of the things that I appreciate, and I'll tell you why. Because I enjoy seeing people struggle. I'm a mean, maniacal. No. But this is right. This is only a few years after he was originally created. He was based on like the strongmen that you see at the circus.
Right.
And it was only after this that This story of Superman has been told for decades and decades, and to make things interesting, he kept getting stronger and more powers, and it got weirder. So this is the earlier part where it's a lot weaker. It got to a point where in the late 70s and early 80s, Superman could destroy a planet with one punch, to the point where and all the stories got intertwined and ridiculous that DC said, hold up, we're going to reboot this thing. And they've been rebooting ever since, unfortunately. Yeah, exactly.
Is that the same thing as New 52, or that's different?
New 52 was a whole nother reboot of everything later.
Oh, okay.
The Infinity Crisis was the original, because they had so many stories, and they were trying to constantly. They claim that everything takes place within a 20-year time period at all times. And so like the stories just got so big. You're like, hey, how come this 15-year-old is still 15? And so they rebooted the whole series and created the concept of multiple universes. And that's how they actually explained the early Superman still being a thing. And if I remember correctly, when they rebooted the series, like when they did the whole reboot, the original Superman, this Superman actually disappeared.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, in the Infinite Crisis.
He went into the sun.
And then later, there was another crisis moment, and that Superman, along with another character, had to break through this temporal time warp that they were stuck in to stop another disaster from taking place.
I think originally it was that they killed off Lois. And so Superman just said, I'm done, and went to live in our sun.
Oh, wow.
That was another storyline, though. You're talking about the Superman 1 million. I think it was the same Superman.
Yeah.
But that was later down the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, but before things got complicated, this is
why.
The earlier version, which is less powerful.
Right.
And I enjoyed actually seeing the hero struggle. It was amazing. It's kind of like Jackie Chan, how you like to see him fight, because one of the things
he gets hurt every so often.
He gets hurt. You feel a connection, like, oh, there's vulnerability there, and that means that there's drama and tension. He's not like I can do anything.
That's a great, I totally buy into that, Paul, except with Jackie Chan, his skill and his strength is consistent. It wasn't consistent with Superman. Sometimes he is able to pick up huge beams, other times he wasn't able
50 or 75
little
years.
stone hatch. Oh no, I can't get this.
If you watch Drunken Master, he couldn't.
So, and that I see what you're saying, Paul, and I do appreciate that. That's one thing that coming to the series, you do have to remove, 100 years worth of Superman history,
correct,
from your mindset to come to this.
I believe it's 100 years. That's so ridiculous.
But there is so much inconsistency, though. Just like what Francisco was saying, there's one episode where he's lifting beams and he's like doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and then the next episode, like he's beating down a door, like he's like, no, open up.
Yeah.
Get in.
Another thing that's weird about Superman, how is he able to, it's just so strange to me. And I guess this is probably just 40s. We're making this mainly for kids mentality, but he's just able to fix anything, whether it's a train track or a bridge or whatever. He'll just like tie a rope around it or duct tape it or something. Oh, it's fine. It'll work just fine.
Yeah, throw some duct tape on there. It's good. No, he's temporarily solving it so people can get off the broken bridge till they fix it.
I don't think it would even solve it, though. I feel like that would just break it more.
No, but the bridge is in the middle of falling. He's lifting it up and wrapping cords around it so that those on the bridge can get off and not fall into the water.
No, but there isn't enough material.
You know what? It doesn't matter. I like the Superman, so I'm going to argue no matter what you say.
All right. So obviously we have some strong opinions.
I'm going to bring an engineer on here and we'll talk about this.
Let's do that. Celeste, what did you think about this particular version of Superman?
I got frustrated with the discrepancies in his power.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure why, and this is a general overall with all the art that I forgot to mention earlier, but I'm not sure why all the guys had the Jay Leno chin.
Oh yeah,
I don't know what you're talking about.
To be pretty consistent.
I don't
it did
understand.
Seem like,
what are you talking about, guys? What's wrong with these guys?
So, but I don't get it. I didn't care for that.
With the cleft chin in the middle, that's because they're all handsome.
Apparently.
It did seem like a lot of the male characters, and I mean the few female characters were all had very similar body types and overall faces.
Mhm.
The only ones that stood out were some of the gangsters and the Japanese people, and
that I can kind of understand because this is the 40s.
Mhm.
The chin thing was an oddity for me.
Mhm.
So I thought it was funny the way they showed the shadows of him like changing clothes.
Yes.
Like he's not under his clothes. This is like, let me put on these tights real quick.
Right.
And I mean, I assume that none of y'all have put on leggings or tights, and that it's not easy. Especially not standing up.
That's his superpower, is putting on tights.
That is his superpower, putting on tights and not falling over.
Here's the thing
so
with
quickly.
all those scenes, though, he leaves his suits in the phone booths or wherever he happens to be. I don't see him take it anywhere or pack it up.
In Superman lore, there is a pouch in the inside of the cape where he sticks it. Yes.
There's a lore about these things.
He is a kangaroo.
Yes.
But is it a super suit? Where's my super suit? That it can fold down.
Why do you need to know?
Oh gosh. I always wondered though, like I heard about the pouch. I was wondering if it was like similar along the technology of like what the Flash uses with his ring.
With his ring.
Yeah. We'll say yes and move on.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, speaking of moving on, if we get no other opinions about this Superman.
Like the voice change between Clark and Superman. It was the same guy who did the voice on the radio. And so I like the mild-mannered change play they did there. So I like it.
Okay, I wasn't sure about that because I thought sometimes they would change the voice of who did Superman. It seemed like it didn't seem consistent to me.
Later in the series, they changed him. Later in the series, they changed him.
They did?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Oh, that's not what I heard. That's horrible because they used the same voice for Lois and Clark as the radio because that's what people recognized.
Well, that's when they're charging $1 million an episode. After that, they there's like, here's my $1 million an episode. I gotta go back to radio.
Yeah.
So now I will say this about the whole voicing everything. Did any of you guys feel like the story got weaker the more the characters talked?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I think it was. I feel like it's a situation of correlation doesn't equal causation. I feel like it just got worse, not necessarily because of the dialogue, but it just so happened that they weren't working on it they weren't keeping it as crisp and as pure story driven as the earlier episodes. And so they just like, oh, we'll just exposition this stuff because we don't know what else to do.
Right. Like, I really feel like that's what was happening within the series is they're like, we'll just explain it and go on.
That's because they weren't as good storytellers as the people who worked on the first ones. And fact check, you were right, Dallas. Bud Collard initially provided the voice for the series, but not later on. So good call.
Thank you. So, because we were watching it and we're like, he sounded weird after like the 6th episode or something like that. I thought maybe it was like because we're listening to it all like from my phone but no, it was definitely different. So, but either way, it wasn't a bad Superman. Like there was definitely a sense of heroism in his voice. Like you're like, this is a man I can trust, and I can, this guy's going to take care of business. And at the same time, he did talk softer as Clark Kent. The few times you heard Clark.
And they kept the sarcasm.
Yes.
Thank goodness Superman was around. That type of thing, which I think is a classic of Superman.
Yeah. Yes. I did like the one where it was from the opera, and I can't remember if that was before or after they made the transition to the studios. And he's like, I'm just dreaming I was Superman. And she's like, you'd make a fine Superman as well in my dreams.
Oh, yeah.
So like there was a humor behind him.
Yeah, definitely.
Darkness behind this particular Superman that I really enjoy. And I don't remember seeing this kind of snarkiness in modern versions of Superman. Do you guys?
No, it's not definitely not there as much. I mean, they try to be playful, especially like in Smallville and stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say in Smallville,
but it's definitely a different tone.
Yeah, I've never seen Lois and Clark, so I don't know what that's like. But
that's very sarcastic.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, Lois is way more.
Yes, she is.
But yeah, I almost feel like this is what I think modern audiences might lean towards, more the cheesy side of sarcasm, these Fleischer episodes.
Absolutely. All right, cool. What we're going to do, guys, is we're going to transition into a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about whether or not this is a good Superman series to recommend to people, if we enjoyed it, and maybe were some of the elements that played into us enjoying it or maybe disliking it. So we'll be right back after this message.
After these messages,
We'll be right back.
Welcome to Victims and Villains. This is the channel where we talk nerd, we talk hope, and we speak nothing else. I'm your host, Captain Nostalgia, and I'm so glad that you're here to join us.
Victims and Villains is a podcast and YouTube channel that marries pop culture and suicide prevention, producing content with the intent to let people know that there is hope and that there is a better way, and that each and every listener has value and worth.
Listen to Victims and Villains on your favorite podcast catcher or on YouTube by searching for Victims and Villains. Also, check out their website, victimsandvillains.net.
Comms returning to normal stasis in 3, 2, 1.
All right, well, guys, we hope you enjoyed that commercial break. For this last portion of it, we're going to be talking about if we think this is a good series. That's the main aspect of this whole series that we're doing here is, are these worth watching? Are these worth picking up and sharing? And maybe some stuff that played into it. As we watch this, I have to be very honest with you guys. I was fighting the nostalgia train so hard.
Yes, he was.
Throughout watching this.
Boom.
It was so bad, guys. Like I said at the beginning of the show, and said before we were recording, I've watched a lot of this and didn't realize how much I'd seen. As a kid, my mom bought me a VHS tape of Superman cartoons.
Yeah.
And I think almost every one of these was on there.
Yeah.
Even the more controversial ones that involved Nazis and Japanese people.
Might have gotten you in trouble at school.
They might have gotten me in trouble at school. We'll get into that conversation later.
Oh, I want to hear that.
Right. So, but for real, like these cartoons, I probably watched several of these. I don't know how many times. And so as we're watching, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm flashback into like being a kid watching it in the back of the van or
that's cool.
Oh, fun.
And so it was really neat for me to watch this. And so I struggle to go, is this really good? Or am I just feeling really nostalgic right now?
Yeah.
So what were you guys' thoughts on the whole series?
I'm curious to hear Paul's. Before
Mine is
rain down on his
yeah
good vibes.
Okay. If I would say for the average person, this series is a snooze fest. That it is really hard to get through. If I didn't have to watch it, I probably wouldn't watch it. That being said, if you appreciate art, if you appreciate any kind of film or anything to do with the superhero genre, this is a must see because the art in it is beautiful and it is so well done artistically that it can't be missed. So depending on which of those two you feel you're more a part of, it depends.
I can see that.
For me, in total, I would say if I had to recommend, like, okay, let's say I'm talking to someone who like they have to watch a whole series, they're a completionist. I would say no, I don't recommend this to you then because you will be bored for most of it.
Well, if you're a completionist for the initial Fleischer episodes,
yeah, that's true.
Okay, so here's where I'm going with that.
Okay,
that if you can cherry pick the best episodes, then yes, this is a big recommendation. I feel like there's so much ingenuity in terms of storytelling, especially for people that I think maybe this is just me spitballing, but I get the impression that there are a lot of people out there that enjoyed the little Pixar shorts in front of Pixar movies and Disney movies. And just, I feel like these are great little, almost short films, those early episodes, a lot of them.
And they were.
They came on before movies, right?
Right.
Originally. So I feel like though, if you could cherry pick maybe the top 5 and say, hey, these are really good, watch these, then those I would recommend, because I feel like they are really interesting and beautifully animated, except for no nose and high forehead. Other than that, I feel like other than those 5, I can't really recommend it. So
let me ask you this though, put you on the spot. What are those top 5? I know you don't necessarily have a titles list in front of you, but what are those top 5 that you like? This, you got to watch this.
The ones that come to mind for me are Mechanical Monsters. That's like my top one. The original episode, which really I forget what was it? It was like, it's another mad scientist type guy.
Yeah, it's 2 titles. It's either called Superman or the Mad Scientist.
Mad Scientist. Okay, I forget what he was doing, but it was just really interesting. I was totally not expecting this for this type of cartoon, so it really caught me off guard in a good way. So that one, the train one, because you get to see Lois really like show her stuff.
Right.
None of that came off poorly.
I know what you meant.
Show her heroism. That's what I meant.
That's
it. So that's 3. I also liked. Let's see. That's tough after that.
Bulleteers.
Bulleteers was interesting. I felt like the physics of it bothered me a lot though, because how is that thing supposed to be going around like it does?
To be honest.
What was that?
The Bulleteers, I didn't really care for that one, to be honest.
Okay, yeah, I felt like it could have worked better, but the magnet with the comet. I like that one. So I can't think of a 5th one.
Arctic Giant. With
if it looked more like, I kept thinking like, so with that one, I kept scaling against like, okay, I've seen T-Rex in the Lost World, like Steven Spielberg's Lost World. So it's not that high. And this looks like an old timey dinosaur. This looks more like a dragon.
The character design reminded me of
Denver the Last Dinosaur?
No, Reptar from Rugrats.
Yeah, I can see that. Yes.
So funny story. When we watched this episode, Dallas took a picture of it and sent it to his sister. And was like, Denver the Last Dinosaur is angry. And she goes, you need to feed him a taco. My friend and a whole lot more.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Can that be reviewed on the Retro Rewind podcast?
It can be, but will it?
Only the votes will tell.
Yeah.
All right, Celeste, what are your thoughts on this series? Is this a good one for people to jump in? Did you like it?
I agree with Paul. There's a certain audience for it. I enjoyed it. You enjoyed it. But if you don't have an appreciation for the art, or you don't want to just watch everything connected to Superman, then it's probably not for you.
Right.
Like maybe 1 or 2. And I think the part of it that was so appealing for me is how short it was. Like each episode was super short. So even if it was a not great episode, it was done really quickly.
Yeah.
It's not like, hour-long episodes where you're like, oh my God, just end so that I can get to the next episode.
As the series went on, I was starting to get that way though. I was like,
yeah.
Even though they're like 6 minutes, and by that point, I'm like, come on, just get to the next one.
Here's a thought. How about just saying you have to watch at least 1 episode?
Ooh.
I could agree with that.
Then yeah, I'd recommend it if you just have to commit to 1.
What's the one though? What's the one you guys would tell people?
Mechanical Monsters. I already said that.
Right. What about you, Paul?
I would say any of the first
pick 1, Paul.
No, I would say, look here. What sounds interesting to you? Any one of these.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, Celeste.
Except the Arctic Giant. Don't pick that one.
That one.
Well, there we go.
Because I love the big beast. No, that probably wouldn't be the one I'd pick. I think I'd pick the telescope one.
Yeah, the magnetic telescope.
Yeah, because that one is such classic science fiction.
Right.
Yeah.
So it hits a whole nother genre.
Yeah. I'd probably fall in the same reign with you guys. That first set, they were just so beautifully done. The storytelling was so great. I kind of fall under the mechanical monster mindset also. It's really it stood out to me quite a bit.
Simplify.
The mad scientist one though was I think it's, I forgot which one of us has said it, but it's like you're caught off guard by it. Like you're watching it, you go through the intro and you're like, oh my gosh, like what am I watching?
Yeah.
Like there's a real, like throughout all of them, there's this real feel of like danger and excitement. And you're like, what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
And then it ends, you're like, but I want more, right?
Yeah.
And then you have weird stuff happen.
It's very pulpy in a very good way.
Yeah, absolutely. So that said, if I'm talking to somebody who's like they're into the political cartoon side of things, I can't help but recommend the 11th Hour or Destruction Inc. or some of those other ones. I can definitely not recommend some of them though.
Yes, for sure.
Like the Underworld with the Flying Birdman.
See, and that's the only one I didn't see. So okay, I'm glad I missed it.
I kept waiting for one of them to come out wearing a suit and be a lawyer for some reason.
I feel like you need to watch it, Francisco.
Maybe, yeah, just so I can complete it.
Yeah. Do it.
And so you can understand what we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, good point.
But I thought that was interesting. I thought there was some real tension there. Like they could be turned into statues.
There was that. But honestly, though, when you pair it up, when you look at it and how it's been spaced out, you had Jungle Drums right beforehand. You had the Mummy Strikes, which was okay-ish. And then you had Destruction Inc. and 11th Hour. You're like, it's just so different. I think that's why we like it more.
Yeah, and that's what I liked about it. It's because you're introduced to a whole new group of beings, basically, in the underworld. Like, oh, this opens up the world to even, more potential.
Right.
So I like that aspect.
I can see that. That's fair. Now, let me ask you guys this from a point of view of like the influence on society and people. What do you think this ranks in that? Because that is one of those things about, when you introduce people to this. I mean, I feel like watching this, I'm like, there's a lot of influential things that took place in this that I feel like had lasting effects, not just on people, but even within the series. So we already talked about how it changed up he gave Superman flight. There's a lot of things in this that we saw echoed in the serials. The Batman the Animated Series also. And even somewhat echoed in the New Adventures of Superman.
Even some of it in the live action.
Yeah.
One that we reviewed on Retro.
Like the infamous dam breaking down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was sort of, you did see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also this was very influential for its time. This was actually pre-film noir. During the time before film noir became really big, this had its dramatic shadows and its weird angles before that. And I'm not saying this sparked it, because there are other films and other shorts that did that, but I'm saying from an artistic point of view, this was not only ahead of its time, but it has influenced since then.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for me, I have trouble really gauging what the influence of it has been without, like I said, the only thing I sort of like, oh, this is very reminiscent of Batman the Animated Series. So that's the only thing I could see. Oh, it probably inspired that song. So I'm just going to leave it to you guys who are way more versed in Superman and DC and comic books to tell me how much it influences.
Now, I'll tell you this, for me personally, it influenced me a lot of my thought process. And even like, I remember being a kid and emulating some of the things I saw in this, like to the point, like in the first episode of the Mad Scientist, when he's fighting off the torpedoes. Yes. I remember being a kid going, like swimming in the pool and they have the jets coming at you.
Oh yeah.
I remember beating away at the jets with this scene in my mind.
Yes.
Oh, that's
forget wrapping the towel around your neck. You're beating the water jet. Yes.
So, I mean, it definitely had that. But we alluded earlier, I actually got in trouble because of some of this stuff when I was a kid. As a child, I'm in class, and I remember watching this and The Rocketeer, and remembering that there was a interesting logo that was associated with evil. And so, and I instinctually associated the American flag with truth, justice, and the American way.
Amen, brother.
So, and so I drew a series of pictures. In class, I was bored one day, and I drew a bomber dropping a bomb on an island that had a Nazi flag, and the bomber had an American flag, and then drew a
What kind of bomber was it? B-52?
It was a really big one.
B-2 stealth bomber? I need to know what kind. Exactly.
You're the one with the time machine. Go back in time to like 1993 and ask me.
It was a B-2 mega bomber.
B-2 mega bomber. Oh my gosh. So, and then I do another picture where you had a submarine with the American flag bombing an island with a Nazi flag. And there was a young lady behind me who was apparently Jewish. And I didn't know what Judaism was.
Okay.
And all she saw was the Nazi flag. And I got in trouble, and I just remember being very confused because I was drawing.
I a 40-plus-year-old man, and I'm confused. You weren't dropping a bomb on a Star of David flag.
Yeah.
So did you only see the one symbol?
The girl did, and she was like crying, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening. Like at the time,
look, I'm killing this thing. I'm blowing it to Kingdom Come.
These are the bad guys,
right? That's what I said. My teacher's like, "Do you know what you've done here? Do you know what you've drawn?" I'm like,
killing bad guys.
These are the bad guys. These are the good guys. I don't know what's wrong. Like
nothing, Dallas. I'm here to unbrainwash your brainwashing. There, you did nothing wrong. In fact, you need to draw 20 more of those.
And I'm sure
on the board.
If this random young lady ever, if she so happens to randomly hear this podcast, she thinks back to like 20 some odd years ago. She goes, "Oh my gosh, that was weird." I'm sure she'd feel bad about making me feel weird about it, but I did. Like it influenced me. I instinctually associated the political brainwashing worked. I'm like, those are the bad guys. Let's destroy them, kill them, get rid of them.
You know the difference between brainwashing and education?
One's propagated by the winner.
Nothing.
Winner makes history.
So for me, this instilled. I remember because again, I watched this a lot, and several other particular series that were older. Mm-hmm. It instilled a lot of my mindset of values of what's right, what's wrong, even down to the point like I didn't understand what the KKK was. Mm-hmm. But I understood that a dude wearing a white robe was not a good thing, which is what we saw in the Jungle Drums. Mm-hmm. I just said that's evil for some reason.
Yeah, they popped up and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And he's like, "What? They look like this." And
I looked at the screen. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I remember seeing it as a child. Because the Jungle Drums was one of the ones.
I didn't associate that with the KKK. That's interesting. When you said guy wearing a white robe, I thought of like a priest walking down the aisle with the ball and chain swinging with the smoke coming out.
No, not that one, Paul.
Okay.
So
Jesus wears a white robe, and
he does.
We're going to be wearing white robes.
He's got a tattoo on his thigh. And so
I didn't meet that Jesus.
Read Revelations. You'll see him later.
All right, cool.
Another day.
Thank you, Francisco.
But anyways, so for me as an individual, I know that this instilled a lot of things in me as far as values and world outlook. And I can't help but wonder what this did for young people watching it as a kid. And of course you have the age-old thing, like, did this reflect society, which I believe it did, or did this imbue into society a set of morals and mindsets?
Do you feel as like, darn it, sorry. No, I did have a question just was right there. Do you feel that that this series, watching this so young, are you upset that it was so influential and that it got you in trouble? Or
I don't think so. And again, as a kid, the more I think back about that scene, that moment, the teacher kind of blew me off, and it was like they had to talk to my mom to go, "Hey, this happened," but it's not like I got in trouble. I didn't get time out or anything like that. But I remember there was this ordeal made in class of like, "How dare you draw this symbol?" Oh, wow. And as a kid, like, for me, like if I get a phone call from my school, my kid's school, and they say, "Hey, your kid did this, and this is what he drew," I'm gonna like, "Sweet, I'm gonna give him a high five and go buy him a hot dog."
Yeah, get her done.
Go buy him a hot dog and an apple pie. What's going on with this life?
Yeah. Good job, teacher. Have him do more of that.
So I'm not angry about the way I was raised with it, but I can definitely see its influence.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I feel like, you could say, I think a lot of it depends on the person and what they're consuming, because I saw a lot, like I was one of those kids that I was allowed to watch R-rated movies from a pretty young age.
Sure.
And so I'm sure some of that influenced me. But the thing I remember actually actually doing was watching Back to the Future. I don't know how many times. And I thought, okay, all I need is a bunch of wires and some remote controls. I'll hook them up to my brother's little bicycle car thing, and we can have a time machine. We can do it. We just got to get that thing up to 88 miles per hour and we can go. I broke his car bicycle thing, but we might have gone up. We might have traveled in time.
This reminds me back when we were talking about kids not understanding the cartoon and the difference between that and the commercial and the reality.
Well, that wasn't a cartoon. That was a movie. So it might as well have been real.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So with all that said, with the fact that this is kind of influential on some people, is this worth showing to maybe younger audiences who maybe haven't been tainted by them? Because I mean, if you're a kid coming to this, you're like, wow, this is kind of slow. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to show a kid the last half of this, maybe, but a couple of them, like, do you think this would be good for that?
So I actually ended up showing my daughter the first one because I just happened to be watching it, and she watched it with me, and she seemed very pre-engaged, almost 7.
Okay.
And then just so happened was showing her the 11th hour, because that's the next one when she was watching with me. And actually I was telling her, what, that's really sad to me that Superman's just okay with killing all these people. And actually talking to her about that. I didn't go into all that because she's not
America.
They're not talking about World War II in 2nd grade or 1st grade right now.
Why not? Right. She should be drawing Nazi symbols and stuff by now. Come on.
But she seemed to like it. I get the impression right now that it's more about just watching something with daddy as opposed to what's being watched.
Explosions.
But she wasn't like, ooh, another one. Can we watch another one? She was like that when I showed her Ninja Turtles as a younger age. So
violence.
I much rather her be influenced by Ninja Turtles. Much more tubular.
Let's kick shell.
Thank you. I was looking for some transition, but I was evading me.
Oh my gosh. So what do you think, Celeste? Do you think, with all that being said about the influence on people, do you think it's worth it?
For kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, going back to that, I'd probably say no, just in general. But
really?
Depends on the kid.
Yeah.
Like, every child is different. So I know one little girl who would probably be bored, but she would be able to wrap her head around it.
Mm-hmm.
But her brothers would just be bored.
Yeah.
Like, it's just because they're different children.
Right.
So I think it would have to be a case by case basis.
I can see that.
Yeah.
If I had kids, I'd let them watch it. Yeah, just go ahead and munch on this media fodder. It'll help.
Tape their eyes open.
But
watch it.
I like it, Paul. It depends on the kid.
Oh, sure. If they don't like it, they could watch something else, or go read a book or something. But I wouldn't turn it off saying, "Hey, you can't watch this. You're not old enough to appreciate the fine detail. Look at Superman's hair in the underwater as he's struggling with those cords. You don't see that in Flash animation, do you?"
Flash animation. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. All right, so Devoted Geeks, as you guys are listening to this, let us know your thoughts about all of the stuff that's been said today.
All the stuffs.
Because we've gone into several interesting rabbit trails, which is always fun, because we enjoy these conversations with our friends, especially you guys, Retro Rewind Podcast.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
You guys it's always a joy talking to you guys, hanging out with you guys.
Likewise.
Real quick, remind the Devoted Geeks listening how to get a hold of you guys, how they can check out your stuff, maybe support what you guys do.
Well, they can find all our episodes at retrorewindpodcast.com. We're up to 167 episodes. Wow. So lots of movies, and probably, I don't know if we're up to a dozen video games we've covered, but I'm sure if you have a movie you remember liking as a kid, if you grew up in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, If you grew up later and enjoy movies from then, that works too. But you could probably find at least one movie you like, and check us out there. And you can find me personally at FXRUIZX on Instagram and Twitter. I'm usually posting pixel art.
And I'm PaulJPowers.com.
You are.
You are the .com.
Yes.
Paul's not actually a person. He's actually a computer program.
I'm a highly evolved person / computer from watching these Superman cartoons as a kid.
I am one with the code, and the code is with me.
Yes.
You're an AI.
I'm not artificial. You are.
That's awesome.
Sorry. That's my
You fight
sass
for the
coming out.
users, Paul. I get it.
Yeah. I am.
All right.
You are a user.
Oh man, Devoted Geeks again. Thank you so much for taking time to watch or listen to this podcast and enjoy. I hope you laughed as much as we laughed today. Do us a favor, if you want to check out more of these guys, check out their stuff that they just put out. There'll be links in the description down below on YouTube and on our website, geekdevotions.com. Don't forget, if you'd like to support what we do here for as little as $1 a month, you can support us at Patreon, patreon.com/geekdevotions.
Do it now.
Do it now. Celeste?
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Comm Talk today. If you have loved this episode, head on over to Apple Podcasts to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. So until next Sunday, stay devoted.
Peace and love.